The following interview was conducted as part of the Price of Freedom project by the Madison County Military Heritage Commission to inform and enlighten young people and the community as a whole about the sacrifices made by those in the military on battlefields around the world. We wish to thank the Huntsville School System and the Lehigh Broadcast Center for their help in presenting this military heritage program. Hello, I'm Tom Kennemer. Welcome to our program. Our guest today is Arno Hoerle. Arno is a retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel who served 25 years in the service and is the recipient of 2 awards of the Distinguished Flying Cross for his heroic actions as a helicopter pilot in Vietnam. Arno was inducted into the Madison County Military Heritage Hall of Heroes in 2014 and presently serves on the Heritage Commission Board of Directors. Arno, it's a pleasure to have you with us, sir. Appreciate your time today. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. We'll talk about your military service in a moment, but first tell us a little about your childhood. Now, you were born in Nebraska, is that right?
Yes, I was. Yeah. A little farm community right outside of Columbus, Nebraska, which is located close to Lincoln, Nebraska, Platte River Valley. Yeah. I have, of course, my mother and father, 4 sisters and 3 brothers, 1 older brother, and the rest of them are younger than I.
You're a farming family, I think?
Farming family. Yeah. Went to school in a little bitty county school out in the country. Yeah. 1 teacher and about 30 students, 1st through 8th grade.
Like Little House on the Prairie kind of thing.
Little House on the Prairie kind of arrangement.
And you had, was it 9 brothers and sisters, or were you included in that?
There were 8 of us.
8, okay, all right.
4 sisters and 3 brothers.
Now, did any of your family, other than you, go in the military?
Yes, I had a brother that went in, but he only stayed the mandatory 3 years and got out again. And my oldest brother was in the Air Force for 8 years.
Now, you lived in Nebraska, and then I think in your childhood, was it, or teenage years, you moved to Missouri, right?
Well, at age 11, I moved to northern Missouri, and we spent about 3-4 years in northern Missouri, and then relocated again down towards Lebanon, Missouri. That's a place between Springfield, Missouri and Fort Leonard Wood.
Okay. Now, did you have any interest in grade school or high school in flying?
Mostly in high school. I found out that they had a Civil Air Patrol unit there, and I had always been fascinated with aircraft. So I joined the Civil Air Patrol while in high school and stayed with it throughout all my high school years.
Now, did you join the Army immediately after high school, or did you go to college, or what did you do?
No, not immediately. After graduation from high school in 1957, and having been involved in aviation kind of things, I decided to try my luck at McDonnell Aircraft Corporation in St. Louis, Missouri. It didn't last long. I couldn't see myself as pounding rivets for the next whatever number of years.
I wanted to try something else.
I wanted to try something else, so I went back home to Lebanon, and myself and 2 of my buddies joined the Army together.
Why did you choose the Army?
Well, I guess primarily because the other 2 guys wanted to be in the Army, and I decided I wanted to go with them, so we all joined the Army together and went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, Little Korea, and did our basic training there.
Tell us about basic. How was that for you?
Basic training, as far as I was concerned, was an easy thing. I was small and wiry, and I could do all the stuff that they wanted me to do. So
you were in pretty good shape.
I was in good shape.
Working on the farm.
And I knew how to use weapons, and all that stuff. So it became easy for me.
I see. Arno, you were an enlisted man for several years. Tell us about that experience. What all did you do? What kind of jobs did you have?
Well, after basic training, I went to Fort Eustis, Virginia, and got advanced individual training as an aircraft mechanic there. And right after that, I got shipped out to Germany. And all my time in Germany, I was either a flight crew member, a crew chief, or in maintenance.
I see.
So always working with aviation.
What encouraged you? When did it come along? Do you want to become an officer? What encouraged you to try that out?
having been fascinated with aircraft since small childhood, I decided while in Germany that I wanted to try for flight school. And at that point in time, not having any kind of a college degree or anything, the only avenue was through the Warrant Officer Flight Program. And after applying twice and being rejected twice for a physical condition, I kind of put it on the back burner and finished my tour in Germany and came back to the States, and fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, was transferred to the 11th Air Assault Division. And there I worked as a flight engineer on multi-engine aircraft. And while there, I decided that I didn't want to complete my career as a flight engineer or enlisted person, so I applied for OCS while at Fort Benning and went to OCS at Fort Benning.
Okay.
And that was an interesting thing too.
Well, tell us a little about going through flight school. Was it tougher than you thought it would be? Or?
Actually, I thought it was a snap being around aircraft as much as I was.
Really? You had some experience already.
I had about 8 years of experience around aircraft, so I knew a little bit about it, and I thought flight school was a snap.
Well, how did you settle on helicopters? You talked about you were in multi-engine work for a while.
Well, the main reason I was anxious to get to flight school, and I had applied to go as a fixed wing. And unfortunately, the allocation was for a year out in the future, and I wanted to go right away, so they gave me an option to go to helicopter flight training and go right away after OCS and jump school.
Now, did you go to Vietnam directly right out of flight school, or did you go to another base?
No, I went to another base after flight school because they had a special mission in Vietnam for us, for my unit. We went out to Fort Carson, Colorado, and did high-level training in mountainous terrain, because that's what we would be doing in Vietnam. So we trained for about 6 months in Colorado before we were shipped out to Vietnam.
Now, where were you first stationed in Vietnam? Where did you go to?
Well, our logging site was Long Binh. But right after we got in Vietnam, a bunch of us were dispatched out to work with the 5th Special Forces. And we were in various locations throughout Vietnam.
Arno, tell us a little about your missions. I mean, they change from time to time, but talk about your missions. What exactly did you do when you were in Vietnam?
Well, we had several missions, actually. The primary mission was interdiction mission with the 5th Special Forces, taking teams, either 5, 7, 12-man teams, and depositing them out in the jungle someplace, and they would do their work trying to locate and identify the enemy forces. And after they had done their mission, then we'd go back out and pick them up.
You were flying the Huey helicopter?
During this time, yes, I was flying the newest version of the Huey helicopter, which was the H model. It was a higher powered aircraft than what we were used to.
Carry more people, more troops?
More people, more power, being able to get in and out of small jungle areas. So it was a pretty good aircraft.
Explain to their students maybe listening, they would be interested in a pilot and a co-pilot, and then you have a gunner or machine gunner. Talk about the crew involved.
Yeah, we had, of course, the pilot, co-pilot, gunner, and crew chief.
Okay.
The crew chief acted as a gunner also.
Okay.
Then we could carry 9 or 11 passengers beside that.
Oh, I see. Okay. Now, you were married at this time when you went overseas?
Yes, I was.
You and Renata had been married just, what, short time, right?
We got married in 1961, and in 1962 we had our first child. And I left for Vietnam in 1967. So I had one child that was 5 and the other one 3 when I departed for Vietnam, my first tour.
I see. When you had some free time, and we've talked about this before, I don't think you had very much free time, but however little that was, what did you do for relaxation? Did you have a chance to see any movies? It didn't have a nice swimming pool over there for you, I think, did they?
Well, working out of the jungle locations that we were with the 5th Special Forces, we had nothing there to speak of. Periodically, we had an opportunity to get back to our home base, which was close to Saigon. So we did have an opportunity to go to the big PX and those kind of things, and see a movie there, but very little time of our own. Because
now, how often would they give you what we call in service R&R? Was that like every month or so? Or
oh no, R&R, supposedly you got one week R&R in a tour.
I see.
But we had a very good commander, working out in the jungle the way we were all the time. He would come out periodically and walk down the line and look at my troops that I had working for me, and he'd say, you, and you are going on R&R, that you need a break. And so he did that about every month. And so in my first tour, even though I should only have one 7-day R&R, I had 2. He thought I needed a break.
You did have a good commander.
Yes, he did.
A lot of smiles to break out when you would hear about some leave or some R&R. I'm sure that was a fun time. Well, we didn't have email, or you couldn't text anyone back then, but you were able to get regular mail, I would assume, from time to time. How often was that? And was it always late? Or
always late. Being, it took quite a while to get to Vietnam to begin with. Probably took 4 or 5 days just to get over there, and then being in various locations in the jungle, it added more time. So a letter that Renata wrote me, I might get 2 to 3 weeks later.
Wow.
And likewise going back. I could write one, and it was the same process going back to her. So it was quite an ordeal.
Did you go on a mission almost every day? You have some downtime? In other words, work on the aircraft, or was it pretty much every day you'd have a mission to go out?
Our missions were quite regular, but when we're not out on a mission, we were on standby alert. We had to be by our aircraft, because if one of our teams got in trouble, enemy contact, we had to go out immediately and extract them out of the jungle.
Of course, no cell phones at that time, but did you occasionally get to talk on the phone? I assume when maybe you went back down to your home base and maybe to Saigon, you get to call home?
No, we didn't have telephone service at all, but we did have high-freq radios.
Okay.
So we could get on the radio and call home on our high-freq radios.
Exactly.
The hardest thing for Renata was to say over after each time.
And let loose the button, or turn the button, or something. And how often would you, whenever you had to do that at the home base?
Yeah.
Okay, not the base camp. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
maybe my first tour, I may have had an opportunity 3 or 4 times to do that throughout the whole tour.
Yeah, that was always a pleasure to talk to the family,
Yes.
and your wife Renata and so forth. Arno, as we mentioned earlier, you were twice awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross for your heroic actions in Vietnam. I want you to tell us about the battles or combat action that led to you receiving these Valor Awards.
Well, one of them was an extraction mission, medevac, taking a bunch of wounded American soldiers out of a combat zone, getting them back to evac hospital. And that particular one, they were in heavy enemy contact. And we went in without any kind of gunship support or anything else. Went in and made our approach in, was receiving heavy enemy fire.
And this is under adverse weather conditions too?
Not this one. This one was a purely medevac operation.
I see, okay.
And they were under such intense enemy fire, my crew had to get out of the aircraft and help extract the wounded and get them back in. And the pilot, which was myself, and my co-pilot, we were trying to suppress the enemy.
You took up weapons yourself?
We took up weapons.
Right, yeah. And it took several trips, I guess, to load all the...
Yeah, we managed to get them all out. No casualties on our side, so that all worked out well.
Was your aircraft hit at that time?
Many, many times.
but you're able to.
We were
fly
able to
back.
fly it out that time.
Right. Now tell us about your second mission, and this was the one I understand that was in severe or bad weather.
Yeah, we had a team on the ground in a place right against the Cambodian border called Song Bay.
Uh-huh.
And we had a team out in the jungle. They came under intense enemy fire from many different directions. The weather was down to almost 0-0.
Thunderstorms and
Thunderstorm, low ceiling. We had to, we called it stacking our aircraft. I went in as lead, and each one of the aircraft was behind me, and all they could see was the rotating beacon on my aircraft. We went in on low level, and I identified the location, and then tried to get the enemy to shoot at me so my next aircraft could go in and make the pickup.
I'm sure they'd like to accommodate you too when they're shooting at you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And you extracted or helped relieve some, get some people back to base camp.
Yes, we got them all out,
Outstanding.
fortunately, and they had one casualty. Unfortunately for him, after we got him out and I was flying him back to base camp, we decided that he was so badly injured that he had to go to the hospital in Saigon right away.
I see.
On the way in, unfortunately, he passed away
Oh,
because he was so badly wounded.
Any of your crew injured on that?
None.
Unfortunately. How would you describe to young people what it's like to serve in a war zone? The thoughts you have of possibly being killed or wounded during battle?
My thoughts on young people serving is learn what you need to do. Learn the enemy, learn what your main function job is going to be and how to perform it best. Survivability is all important, and every person can do that. It's a common instinct for you to survive.
Learn all you can.
Learn
to
all
save
you
your
can
life.
and be prepared.
Be prepared. Were you ever wounded during?
I was not. I'm one of the fortunate ones.
I know people often wonder, Arno, is it okay to be afraid or scared during combat? How would you answer that?
I would say this: if you are not afraid, there is something mentally wrong with you. You get into some actions and of course when you are afraid, your senses are much better also. And so don't believe that it's a failure on your part to be afraid, because I don't know of one person that I've ever lived with or worked with that was not afraid in combat.
When people mention your Valor Awards and call you a hero, how does that make you feel?
Proud in the fact that I was able to do something that helped somebody else. It's a little hard to walk up to somebody and when they start talking to you and say, we're proud of you that, for what you did, because we always felt, all of us that I know, we were doing our job and doing it as best we can.
Was, during this period, was that your most fearful time in Vietnam?
Yes, that was actually this first tour was very, very intense from the day I got there until I left. My second tour was, as far as I'm concerned, a cakewalk because I was flying fixed wing aircraft then, and I could leave my home base and climb up to altitude and do my job and come back. I wasn't down there scrambling in the jungle in a helicopter.
I'm sure you've thought about it through the years. Share with us, or who prepared you to take the actions you did in combat? Was it your family, what or enabled you to do that?
I think it started way back when I was in school. People were trying to get us to do the very best we could with what we were dealt with.
Right.
And that carried right on through my training in the Army. As far as I can tell you, the flight training probably prepared me more than anything else. And it went on through the years. Matter of fact, here's an example of it. That's a master aviator. That's the highest skill you can get in aviation.
Yeah.
And I'm more proud of that than most anything that I've earned.
I know you are. I know you are. And also some of those drill sergeants, I imagine that helped.
The drill sergeants were
Yeah.
God sent.
Right. Helped.
They really help you prepare.
Right. I'm sure that now you served during the war, and through the years, I'm sure you've seen a few war movies. Do you think war is depicted accurately in most of the movies and TV shows that you've seen?
Basically, they have the concept, but
Mhm.
they dramatize everything
Yeah.
to a big extent. My favorite movie was a John Wayne
Yeah.
movie that was closer to reality when he was in the Special Forces operation.
Yeah, okay.
And that was closer to what we did in Vietnam than any other movie I've ever seen.
Really? Yeah. What was that movie?
I can't
Green
even...
Berets.
Green
Green
Beret.
Berets. Yeah.
Green
yeah,
Beret,
very
yeah.
good movie. Sure was. Yeah. Do you often wonder, would you do it all over again?
I would do it today if I wasn't too old. They won't let me.
Do you get still stay in contact with some of the guys that you served with?
I have one of the guys that joined the Army with me. We are still in constant contact. He lives down just south of Atlanta, Georgia.
I see.
And another one that I was served with in Germany, he lives up in Massachusetts.
Mm.
And we communicate constantly. And then, of course, from all the units that I served with, I'm in contact with a lot of those, and we have reunions with some of the units that I get to go back and see them all.
Right.
Matter of fact, we have one coming up with the Chinook unit that I served with in Germany.
Yeah.
We're having another reunion with all those folks.
Good. It's always good to see old friends.
Always
Yeah,
good to
sure
see
is,
old
and
friends.
especially time you served,
Yes.
in service. Yeah, it's really a blessing. Now you served 2 tours in Vietnam. Where were you stationed in between those tours?
Well, after my first tour, I came back, and because my Renata had not been back to Germany at that time for about
You met her in Germany, right?
Married her in Germany. Actually, we got married in Basel, Switzerland.
Is that right? Okay. Yeah.
And she hadn't been back home since we left in 1962.
Okay.
And so I asked for a tour to Germany, and they let me have it, fortunately. And after 2 years, they said I had to go back to Vietnam. And I gave them an option then. Yes, I'll go back to Vietnam, but I want fixed wing training on the way over.
Right. Yeah.
So they gave me that, and then back to Vietnam.
Where were you stationed, at Frankfurt, or where were you stationed in Germany?
First tour, I was at Hanau, Germany.
I've heard of that. Okay.
Fliegerhorst Kaserne, which Fliegerhorst means flying operation. And I spent my whole tour there at Fliegerhorst. Then the second tour, I was at Wiesbaden, Mainz.
Is that near Berlin? I'm not real.
no,
I never was in Germany, but
Wiesbaden and Frankfurt is in the kind of central Germany, a little bit south central. My third tour to Germany, I was at Frankfurt and then Wiesbaden, Mainz again. So I was always in this south central region of Germany.
yeah. Were you training fellow pilots, younger pilots then, to go to Vietnam when you were in Germany?
No, we have regular training organizations that do that kind of work. We had the units that I was with after my Vietnam tours. These were all seasoned soldiers that had a particular mission to do. In Germany, my last tour, we were flying the CH-47 Chinook helicopters, and we had a sensitive secret mission that we were performing. That's all I can say about that.
Okay. What kind of adjustment did you have to make when moving to a new duty station following a time in a war zone? Because it's different environments. Talk about that.
From my perspective, not everybody had the same situation that I had, but coming back out of Vietnam and having a very young family and a very young wife, trying to get reestablished with the family and at the same time having a command job where I had a lot of other responsibilities with over 200 people that I had to make sure were taken care of correctly. It made my transition easier than it was for my wife and children, because I wasn't there much to support them in a new environment, so it became more of a problem for them.
Yeah, it's different adjustments for different people, I guess.
Different
Sure
adjustments,
is.
yes.
Arno, what is your favorite memory from serving, not just in Vietnam, but in the military as a whole? You served 25 years, so what was your favorite memory in the military?
Favorite memory, I think, is that I had an opportunity to do some things that I would have never had the opportunity to do if I had selected another career field.
If you'd stayed at McDonnell
Yeah.
Aircraft, right? Yeah, I see. I know you continued your education during your time in service. Talk about how important that was in preparing for life after military service. And I'm sure a lot of young people would be interested in your comments on that.
Yeah. For a lot of us that entered the military right after high school, in order to survive and stay in the military, we had to find a way to get our education. I had completed everything I needed to complete in a night school environment. But the Army saw fit that they would allow me to go through the bootstrap program and get a full year of civilian college education under my belt and get a really, really formal degree. So I got mine in accounting, thinking that when I got out of the military, I would have something to go back to. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you want to look at that, with my expertise that I gained in the military, I was hired by Boeing Aircraft Company to do development work on a new generation of aircraft. And I worked on that for, I think, 7 years, and then went to work on other programs as a logistics support manager. And so it's all aviation related my whole career up until I retired.
It's good to have military experience on your resume.
Yes, it is.
It's always good. Now, as I said, you know, you're in 25 years, served in the Army for 25 years. What did you do directly after you left service? I mean, you mentioned Boeing. Is that where you started with Boeing at that time?
I went to work for Boeing.
I see. And what brought you to the Huntsville area?
Well, after I retired, we had, my wife and I had never had a lot of time of our own to do the things we wanted to do. And we decided, both of us, that we wanted to do some traveling. So we went out and bought the biggest motorhome we could find and sold our house, sold our cars, sold everything we had, and went traveling in a motorhome.
Hit the road.
Hit the road. During that time, we got to see all 49 states that we could drive the motorhome to.
Is that right? Fantastic.
And while doing that, we even took time out and made another trip to Hawaii.
Wow, but you didn't drive.
We didn't quite make
drive
it.
that trip.
We didn't quite make it that way.
I understand. Arno, do you still do some flying?
I do on occasion. I have a friend that has a small aircraft, and we go out and bore holes in the sky periodically.
Still a pleasure for you.
Yeah, it's still a pleasure.
Yeah.
Every once in a while I'll see one of the CH-47s fly overhead, and I said, boy, I sure would like to
Bring
be
back
there.
some memories. Yeah.
Yes.
Now, as of this taping, on January 21st, 2016, you and Renata have been married 54 years. Tell us a little about your family. Renata, you've been, as I said, 54 years, but you have grandchildren and some great-grandchildren. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yes, we have two boys. Michael is, of course, he was born in 1962, so he's in his 50s already.
Yeah.
Well, both of them actually are. My other son was born in 1964. Michael is in Minneapolis, Minnesota now. He had a very varied life also, because he went to many, many different schools throughout his lifetime. But when we came back from Germany in 1980, he had applied for college at University of Missouri at Rolla to be a chemical engineer, and got accepted and went through college in Missouri. And immediately out of college, he went to work for Cargill Industries, and he's been with them ever since.
Is that right? Yeah.
He's got
Found a home there, right?
Yeah, 31 years with them now.
Fantastic, fantastic.
My other son, he's kind of vagabond. He's been all over the place. He can't find one place that he really wants to stay at very long. Currently, he lives in Arkansas with his daughter. His other two children live in Texas with their mother. And my oldest granddaughter has a son, so he's now 7 years old. So we have 5 grandkids and 1 great-grandchild now.
You need that Winnebago back to go see all these grandchildren.
Actually, that's the way we went to see him for some time.
Good deal. Arno, do you think things have changed in how young people regard the military from the time that you served?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Talk about that for us.
You almost had during the Vietnam years, of course, you almost had to hog-tie people to get him into the military because it was a dangerous time. I think the biggest problem back then was people didn't look favorably on people that were in the military for whatever reason. Now it's completely different. People think the military is a very good profession to be in. It seems like you can get as many people as you want to join, never have a problem with quotas to get in the military. And when people come and go for military assignments in hostile areas, they are welcomed back with open arms. That's something that we didn't have back then.
Yeah, we had a draft back when we were in service.
Yeah.
What would you like for young people, especially our students who may be watching this program from time to time, to learn and hopefully remember from your military experience?
I would hope that they would see, as a result of this service that I performed and many, many other ones, that we were doing something that helped this country to keep the country on the path that we're on today and to stabilize the world.
Arno, thank you so much for participating in our Price for Freedom interview series and allowing us to preserve your military experience for the people of this community. And thank you, sir,
Thank
for
you
service
for
to our
having me.
country. We appreciate it very much. If you'd like more information regarding this interview or any interview in our Military Heritage series, please contact the Madison County Military Heritage Commission website at mcmhc.org.